Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dawn Jeffries, and I will be moderating today's town hall. I will remove my mask now as I let you know that I, along with all of our panelists this afternoon, are joining you from our own personal spaces and, of course, following all of the health guidelines as we take part in this town hall this afternoon virtually. As I've mentioned in previous webinars, our mask is our default, and we really do this to encourage you to do the same and always wear your masks. Thank you for joining us, both to our panelists, who I will introduce in just a moment, and to those of you watching. As always, we will be recording this session, and it will be available immediately after we finish for you to view. Joining me today is Karen DePaul, Vice President and Dean for Graduate Education, Rachel Holloway, Vice Provost for Undergraduate Academic Affairs, Frank Shushak, Vice President for Student Affairs, and Rick Sparks, Associate Vice Provost and University Registrar. Our focus today is on Virginia Tech's spring semester plans, which were announced earlier this week. Of course, there are a lot of questions about it, and we will get right to those this afternoon. But I do want to mention that I did get a number of questions unrelated to spring plans. So we will either address those in future town halls like this one, or through other channels like our daily email, for example, or other communication. Most of our conversation today as well will focus on the Blacksburg campus, and questions came in mainly about the Blacksburg campus, but many of the guidelines are in place for other Virginia Tech campuses as well. So with that, again, thank you to all of our panelists, and I will jump right into our questions this afternoon. First, we received hundreds of questions, but the overwhelming majority were about the same thing, and that was spring break. So I'd like to start with that. And Frank, I'll take it to you first. Students are really just asking why change from a traditional spring break, a traditional week-long spring break. Can you address that for us?
Yeah, it's a great question, Donna. And I just want to start by saying how incredibly grateful I am for our students at Virginia Tech. They have done a terrific job up to now, creating a safe climate for our campus. And I know spring break, I've talked to a lot of students this week. I know how discouraging that news is. And what I want to share about that, there's no one who wanted to cancel spring break. And because we know how important that is for students and for faculty, for staff, for people to have a break in the middle of the semester. But at the end of the day, we needed to do something different with spring break, because travel is a key variable to controlling the spread of COVID-19. And it's why almost every major big size school has done something different with spring break. Either they've canceled it altogether, they're starting a week early or starting a week late. But as we struggled with this, and again, did we want to do this? No. Did we need to do this? Yes, we really did believe that we need to do this to discourage travel. But when we struggled over this decision, and really I say the word struggle because we know that the things that we are asking in this time of COVID are hard for people. There's just no doubt about that. We also wanted to do something where we would allow students and faculty and staff to have a different rhythm in their week. And so that's where we spread the spring break, not canceled it. We spread it over the semester. And if you look at it, there's really in that, there's 2-3 day weekends in the way that it's arranged. And as one of my colleagues told me, if you look at it, every 3 weeks, there's a 4-day class week. And that is designed, and we're really calling those well-being days. And we're encouraging faculty, staff, students, everyone to think about those as a real day off. And that means if it's on Wednesday, that you're not going to come back to a Thursday that's asking you to do a lot of work in Wednesday in preparation for Thursday. And as I was talking to faculty yesterday, they said, we need to take a break too, that, we're all human beings. We need to take a break. So I know this is an important thing, but that's why we did it. It's really to discourage travel. so that we can continue in the path that we're going right now. And I think the path right now is looking good. We're doing well, and students are doing well. And so we're really grateful for that.
And thank you, Dr. Shushak. You mentioned what students are probably seeing, and that is what other universities are doing and things that are being done differently. I do want to touch on some of those in just a little bit, but first, Dr. Holloway, I wanted to come to you and ask you, in terms of not being able to take that whole week off, it's not just for looking at a lot of the questions that have come in from folks, not just upset about not being able to get that whole week off at once, but also being worried, and Frank touched on this a little bit, but worried that instructors are going to treat these as any other day and pile on the work and schedule tests for the day after or assignments that they're having to work on, so that students are forced to work on those well-being days. How will you deter that?
Well, we're going to first communicate with our senior leadership and with our faculty and talk about what Frank just shared. The reason we're doing this is to give people those breaks that they need during the semester. And so we're asking faculty to think about their regular rhythm of a spring semester and to adjust it so that we will be taking those breaks. Now, some of our students really like to work on breaks. I'm sure some of our students listening are planning to work on Thanksgiving, but that's a choice. We want it to be a choice for a student, not something they feel they must do. So we're going to be talking with our faculty, and I know Dean DePaul is preparing a similar communication that will go out to grad directors, because with our graduate students, they're both students and they're also playing a teaching role. So Karen, you might want to address that.
Yeah, Dean DePaul, can you talk about that a little bit? Because as we know, graduate students have a lot of different responsibilities, and they typically use that time differently during spring break. Some may, use it to work on their research or their classwork. But can you talk about, will there be a break in research? What will the impact be on graduate students?
Great, thanks for the question. And Rachel, thanks for bringing up the notion, the fact actually, that grad students serve in a couple of capacities as a grad student, but then also in their role as assistantship. As students, grad students, the same guidelines for no assignments, no expectation of exams, et cetera, will apply for them in terms of the classes in which they are enrolled. Research, as we know, can continue, but I think that we need to respect the graduate students' responsibilities as GRAs, GTAs, and GAs, and to allow them to take that time, a wellness break, as well. So what I'm going to be communicating to the graduate program directors, and therefore then the faculty, is that the grad students and the faculty and advisors should plan ahead for the work that needs to be done, but allowing those days to not be filled with the expectation of research or teaching or engagement otherwise. Students may choose, grad students may choose to do some of that time, but I'm going to encourage them to take that mental break. Plan ahead, take the break. You can get all the things done. And even though we don't have obviously 5 days of spring break, you can be able to plan and make it work out very well for you.
Thank you, Dean DePaul. Sorry, I couldn't unmute there. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about a little bit earlier, Dr. Shushak, and that was what students have certainly seen and are watching what other areas are doing. But there are a lot of other, I guess, options that may not work. And I'd just like to have you touch on some of those and why those won't work for Virginia Tech. And Rick, feel free to chime in as well. One of them is about spring break, and if you had to break it up, why not tack all of those days on to a Friday or to a Monday to give that long weekend? I know you touched on minimizing travel, but are there other factors?
Yeah, I bet the registrar is the best person to talk about those complications. Rick, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, Don, I appreciate the question. There are a number of factors that go into putting the calendar together. And under a normal year, it's our responsibility to take the calendar criteria and lay it out. And the most exciting thing that happens is, when does 4th of July fall and how does it impact summer? And then that ends up impacting the rest of the year. Well, this time around, of course, things were very different. And I want to underscore what Frank said at the beginning, because this was not a fun endeavor to try to put together a spring plan, realizing that we needed to back away from spring break. And then what does it look like? Well, one of the factors that we have to consider in putting together a schedule is the number of hours that a student is in class. And broadly, we call these contact hours. And not to get in the weeds and to bore everyone with registrar speak, but contact hours go together to create a credit hour. And so students, of course, you know that you earn X number of credits for a course. And it's all based on the amount of time that you're spending with instruction. And so that's that contact hour. And so we have to watch that carefully. In fact, normally our spring semester has 72 days in it of instruction. And that's still the case this semester with the way that it's laid out. Even though we don't have spring break, we have 5 days that make up that same amount of non-class time scattered throughout the semester. And so we have to watch those contact hours, not just in terms of the full semester, but also in how it impacts an individual course. And so if we only took Fridays off, for example, then we would disproportionately hit those courses that were held on Fridays. And all of a sudden, if you do the math, we just took a third of the semester away from those Friday courses. Now you can spread them between Friday and Monday, and the impact is not quite as large, but still you are disproportionately hitting those Friday and Monday courses. And so from a contact hour, credit hour perspective, you're disproportionately hitting those courses. So it made a lot more sense to make sure that we were keeping the break the same in terms of the days of the week, but just scattering those out throughout the semester. We realized that all things being equal, that to say, hey, you've got a Wednesday off, you wouldn't normally go about that, because that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. It's difficult to just shut down and take a break on a Wednesday. But given the challenges that we had in the reality of needing to maintain contact hours, credit hours, and the reality of needing to remove the full week, it seemed to be what made the most sense. The other thing that we have to consider is adding days, removing days from the semester. If we end a week early, and so the total amount of time that a student spends on campus or enrolled in a course, whether it's virtual or residential, and they're here, they're on a campus, is the cost of attendance for financial aid. And again, not to go into all the details, but if that time is shortened, then the cost of attendance that the university has to provide financial aid, and it's all defined within the Department of Education, that cost goes down. And so to shrink the semester actually can have an impact on that cost of attendance. So those are just a couple of the factors that have to go into play that the average person wouldn't think about, because you don't have to. And it's the role of some of us at the institution to have to consider those pieces.
I guess I'm wondering, in terms of canceling spring break and ending the semester early, what you might say otherwise to that, and whether that would be a good option, especially if you're talking about wellness days, and being able to get those in.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I'll throw it back to Frank, because I think largely he can speak to it. But I'll say quickly, to go from a January timeframe of the 19th and to run all the way to the 1st of May, that's a long time. And spring is different in fall, because if you look at fall, we even have some days off that are built in, right? We have Labor Day, we have fall break. There are some one-day breaks as you move through fall. Well, if you look at the spring calendar and you start on January 19th, there are no days off until you hit spring break. So if all you're going to do is end early, it's a long chunk of time. And Frank, I think maybe you can speak better than I can to the potential impacts on mental health with going that long.
Sure, Rick. I mean, I think you hit it right in the right space. Is that is a long time to go without a break. And if you all are like me, and I suspect you are, Whenever you land on a 4-day work week or a 4-day school week, that is a huge relief. It just gives you a little extra air. So when you think about every 3 weeks having a 4-day class week, if you can really think of it as a well-being break, then that can give you much needed energy to keep going through the spring semester. So that's why we really wanted to break the semester up with these 5 breaks. One of my favorite quotes is this idea that, the wisdom of life consists of the elimination of the non-essentials. Well, one of the essentials is well-being, and sometimes that's one of the first things that we let slide off. So this is a way to very intentionally weave in to the spring semester a way for you to turn down the volume for a minute, do something relaxing, take care of yourself, and we really want people to do that.
Thank you both. Dr. Holloway and Dean DePaul, I wanted to ask you to this one as well. A number of folks, parents and students, actually writing in, asking if the university will have more in-person classes when spring semester rolls around. And Dean DePaul, to you and to graduate students, what do you expect in-person to look like as well for graduate students?
I think there will be more in-person classes. I think the provost has indicated that he would like to see more, and I think we are in a place where we can offer more of those. The vast majority are still going to be online or hybrid. Another point I'd like to make here too is you asked about instruction and kind of the coursework side of it, but research is still ongoing, and that's part of a graduate student's life, whether it be in the lab, the field, or the library. And those spaces are available, they are open, many of them are open right now, and everybody is using the physical distancing, the masking, et cetera. So I don't know exactly how we count those in terms of the percentage, but I know a lot of that is going on right now.
And at the undergraduate level, and Rick may chime in on this because he's the person behind the scenes working on this, undergraduate students and graduate students know that we are constructing the timetable right now. And so the faculty are making those choices about how best to deliver their courses. And of course, they've got some experience now, having worked through this far in the fall semester with what it looks like to offer hybrid or synchronous or face-to-face. And the provost has asked our faculty and our departments to look very carefully at that. Based on their experience, what is the best way to deliver our courses? Now, we still have some of those constraints in terms of how many people can be in some of our classrooms to meet our guidelines. Still looking at how to best deliver some of our most important hands-on experiences where we know that's essential to learning. So the faculty are all considering that right now. We'll know, I guess, Rick, the date I have here is course request will open on October 27th. So one of the things students really look at the options, sometimes we used to just think about what the course is or the day and time. Well, now we really want students and their advisors to think about those modalities, which ones are best for your particular circumstance, and really build that schedule that you believe and your advisor thinks will be best for you in a semester. And so, one of the things you may be looking at is sometimes you think, well, I must take this course in spring. And sometimes that's true, but you may look at the rotation of courses as well as the modalities to think not just about spring semester, but spring and summer and fall as you put together your whole plan. So we'll be seeing that shortly. It's being constructed right now. We've asked our faculty and our departments to give you comments. So really look at the timetable comments to help you understand what a hybrid might mean. And again, as you work with your advisors, if you're not sure, they can help you reach out and learn more about what may be going on in particular courses. So we really hope we'll see more in person and more hybrid, but the faculty are still working on that even as we are talking with you today. So Rick, something you want to add about the timetable or scheduling?
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it, Rachel. We are working feverishly right now to get all the modalities updated. So the departments have told our office that we're updating those. We anticipate that the timetable is going to be available tomorrow. That's what we're thinking right now. We think that that's going to be open tomorrow, so that you'll have a little bit in the weekend to take a look at how courses are going to be offered. As Rachel mentioned, especially at the undergraduate level, but we are pushing departments, if they're offering a hybrid course, to give a specific comment in the comment section, so you'll know what does that hybrid mean, what specifically for this section. Students, of course, you can search on those modalities if you're looking for an all online course or all online schedule, or if you are looking for a specific modality, you can search courses based off that. Of course, you'll enter course request. You've got 2 weeks starting Tuesday, the 27th. You've got 2 weeks to enter your course request. And as always, I know students, you know this, but for maybe some new students that haven't done course request before, whether you submit your course request on Monday, the 27th, or 2 weeks later on the last day of course request, it's not going to impact your ability to get the schedule. And so it truly is just an open time to collect what you want. So you don't feel like you've got to get this in on Monday, but course requests will be open for 2 weeks. Departments will have an opportunity to make some adjustments to offerings, and then we'll open up drop add as we round December. And I apologize, I'm looking we'll open that up on midnight on the 4th, December 4th. And so you have a little bit of time, but Rachel is exactly right. We want you to take a little bit of time to look at these modalities and make decisions of this type of schedule that you're looking for.
So I think in terms of students making those decisions, one of the concerns is, and I know you said this is in progress right now and faculty are working on this and deciding the modalities, but if a decision is made, will faculty be able to change their decisions between registration and when classes start, or once classes have resumed? Will they be able to change the way it's delivered?
Well, that is a good question, and it is a little more complex than just a yes or no answer. What we're hoping is, given the experience of fall, faculty have a much better knowledge of how to deliver courses in particular modalities. So as we entered fall, we were really not experienced in figuring that out. So we hope that what is entered in the timetable and that you're seeing really will hold. But we also have to allow our faculty to remain flexible, because as we've experienced, since all of this began last spring, things continue to change, continue to evolve. So we have to be flexible enough to adapt to whatever the circumstances may be at the time. But we also know students really want predictability and whatever certainty we can give them. So we're really asking our faculty to approach the schedule that way. And hopefully there would not need to be a change. But as we've learned, this pandemic is unpredictable. So we'll just continue to try to provide certainty in a time of change.
So, obviously we're seeing a lot of students and families asking about more in person. But on the flip side of that, there are folks also who say they aren't comfortable coming back to campus.
Right.
And some are asking if they can choose to go all virtual. And it's kind of twofold. One, is that possible? Can students do courses from home online, obviously? And if so, will they be able to get out of their housing contracts to do so?
Well, let me speak to the schedule, and then Frank can follow up on housing. Yes, I mean, one of the things we've seen is some of our students very much want a fully online experience for all kinds of different reasons. Many about really feeling like they want to be home. They may have family situations where that's a better choice for them. Some of our students work, and an online schedule gives them more flexibility. So certainly a student might choose that and really look for that as their option, while other students really want more in person. And so if they make that choice, Frank, could you follow up on the sort of living issues for them?
Sure. I think a driving rule for us has been is we want people to make decisions that feel right for their family and their unique situation. And everyone's situation is a little different. And the way people are feeling at any given moment is a little different. And so as you go through the course selection process and you make decisions about what modality you would like to take courses in the spring, then what we will do is we will say to you, and what I'm saying right now is that if you do not want to keep your housing contract for the spring, which also would mean that you're dining, then if you will let us know by December 7th, then we will cancel your contract, refund your money, no penalty to you. So that's the date that you want to remember, is December 7th. And by then you should have your course schedule completed and have a good sense of what modality you're going to pursue. And you can make a decision by then.
Dawn, before moving on, if I can just add a couple of things back on the modality, because that impacts graduate students as graduate TAs or RAs and GAs. And the same principles apply, that how the fact of in the selection of the modality by the faculty, there should be consultation with the GTA or GA, and probably the GTA most. And so if there is a discrepancy between how the faculty wants to teach it and the GTA, that will need to be negotiated. And the guiding principle here is the health and safety. And so I wanted to make that clear, because the graduate program directors or myself or someone in the grad school, if grad students have that concern, we will work with you to find that solution. So thanks for letting me, add that.
Thank you, Dean DePaul. I have a lot of questions related to spring and other elements of that and what it will look like. First, move-in is a big one. What will that look like when students return? I'm not sure if you can answer. Okay.
I can certainly take that. So move-in will start on Saturday, the 16th, and it will continue through the 24th. Of course, that first week of courses is all online. There'll be an opportunity by December 7th, so that same day applies, where you'll be able to begin signing up for a move-in date beginning December 7th. So we'll create slots where you can pick your day and time that's available and slot yourself in so you can move in between the 16th and the 24th. As part of that process, we will be requiring a COVID-19 test. We haven't determined exactly how that testing is going to occur, whether it's going to be similar to what you experienced in the fall or not. There's new technology. We're exploring different ways to do that. And so we will make that decision and share that with you as well by December 7th. So that December 7th date's going to be important. You'll know about your move-in slot. You'll know about the COVID-19 testing process for moving in as well. And you'll be able to make a decision about whether or not you want to return to campus for your residence hall. And if you are returning, you don't need to take any action on your residence hall. It's just if you want to cancel your contract and not return for the spring.
And I just wanted to ask you on that point, I think this might be what you were referencing, but just wanted to be sure, because I know some of the questions came in about whether someone's asking if they need to reapply for a new dorm or stay in their current dorm. I know that's typically you stay in the same space, but given everything that's happening, I think it's a valid question.
Right. Unless you have requested a change, there would be no reason to think that you need to relocate in any way. So you would come back to the residence hall room that you depart in November.
Is there anything new this spring? Anything that might be different, handled differently that students can look forward to or be aware of?
Yeah, that is a great question. Let me preference that with two things. One, we've learned a lot since March. The science, we're learning a lot about the science. There's new technology. We're learning how the virus works. So that's one thing. The second thing, which I really want to emphasize, is our students have been extraordinary. They have really committed to create a culture on campus that is safe. And so hats off to Virginia Tech students in that regard. Both of those two things are allowing us to innovate a little bit about the spring semester. So I can share a couple things that I think students can expect. But one thing that happened today is the outdoor basketball hoops went back up. And so I know some students will be really happy about the outdoor basketball hoops going up. So maybe I'll join somebody in a game of horse. I don't know. But here's some other things. We're going to have a pod program for the residence hall where you can register a pod of 8 to 10 people so that the limitation of 3 people to a room can be expanded in the spring semester. So we're still working out the details, but for the spring semester, if you live in the residence halls, there'll be a way to formally register a pod of 8 to 10 students so that and you commit to the same public health kinds of guidelines, but will allow you greater freedom to gather in groups in the spring semester. So that's really important. You'll see additional intramural sports on campus. You'll also see that Student Affairs is committing to doubling in-person programming in the spring semester. So there'll be a lot more in-person programming. Again, following all the public health guidelines is going to be key, but we are going to have more in-person programming. And then another exciting thing for perhaps some of our off-campus students, we do plan to open a very limited number of meal plans for some off-campus students in the spring semester. And if you would like to be considered to be in that group, if you go to the dining services homepage, there's a way to add your name to the wait list. So some people did that in the fall. So if you've already added your name to the wait list, you don't need to add it again. But we will be inviting a limited number of people off campus who would like to participate in on-campus dining. The density of the dining centers will remain the same. The public health standards will remain the same. But we do have the technology and the capacity now to deliver a little more service in the spring safely. So those are all some exciting things. You know, I like to use the metaphor of a dimmer switch that you might have in your dining room. In March, we pulled it all the way down. And now as we're learning more from the science and as our culture has become really committed to being safe, we're inching that light switch up, and one day we'll be back up and the lights will be bright and back on. And the key is that we remain committed together and patient with each other and take good care of ourselves.
And I'm wondering if you can talk about what the spring will look like in terms of a lot of the health and safety measures that are currently in place. Will there still be, I know you said that there's some opening up of sort of the pods in terms of living and housing, but in classes and other spaces, will we still have some level of distancing, wearing masks, those requirements still in place?
Sure, I can talk about that generally and then invite my colleagues to jump in. I think what we know is that the public health guidelines that we're all very familiar with are working and they make a big difference. So I don't think you're going to see a change in social distancing, physical distancing. I don't think you're going to see a change in mask wearing. That's going to be a mainstay in the spring semester. We're going to encourage people to wash their hands. But we do know some students are really committed to the pod concept. The pod concept has worked. There's many students who are doing that really well. And so we can do some things differently. But the general guidelines that we have come to know and value are exactly the same and will be in the spring semester. Rachel, would you like to talk about it from the classroom standpoint?
Yes, I just reiterate what you've just shared. We know it's working in our classrooms. And so we are keeping all those same guidelines about distancing, mask wearing. You know, we've had faculty thinking creatively about keeping those numbers down in any one classroom by having different students come in different days. And so all of that will continue because to our knowledge, that is the best practice. It's certainly what I've seen everywhere at every other campus. And we really appreciate, as Frank said, our students have been so willing to contribute and to give us ideas about how we can continue to do this very well. And so students, if you have ideas about a class, about a lab, please share that with your faculty. You've got great ideas and we welcome them. But we know we've got to wear masks. We've got to maintain our distance. We've got to wash our hands, use that sanitizer. And as long as we keep doing that, I think we're going to continue to be really successful in continuing to be Virginia Tech, both in and outside the classroom.
And let me just add a couple of comments. I don't need to reiterate what the guideline or the health and safety guidelines are. Those are very clear. But I want to emphasize the need for community. And I believe that the pod concept and some of these are getting at that community. And at the graduate level, your lives are different. And so you will have, some of you will have your own pods wherever you are in the state, be it Northern Virginia, Roanoke, or in Blacksburg. But I want to emphasize that there are some programs that we are offering in the grad school, like the GLC Cafe. And right now it's all virtual. We will be opening up some doors and opportunities for people to, for grad students to meet. But it is really, we all need to take extra special effort to build and create community. And it's harder now. Just a quick comment. I teach future professoriate course on Monday night, and I have not seen these students except in the Hollywood Squares type version, except for a few. And they tell me that they really miss that face-to-face and in person. But the challenge there is to create a community within those courses. And that's at both the undergraduate, graduate, and professional students. So just a plug for building, sustaining, affirming community.
And Dawn, if I could add one thing, sorry,
Sure.
you've got all four of us on this question, but to draw a line between all of that, because I've had the question a few times, well, if the pod concept works, then why are we having to remain distance in the classroom? And the reason that desks, tables, chairs, whatever the furniture is in a particular classroom is separated for your face-to-face or hybrid course is because we knew pods could potentially work. And we looked quickly at classrooms, but the fact is, students, you don't take classes in a pod format. Now, certainly some majors, you might have clumpings of courses where you have them with the same students, but across the board, think about your own experienced students, there are different students in every class. And so the reason the pods work in some environments is because we're keeping social distance and we're wearing masks in the classroom. So we know there's no spread of the virus in the classrooms, which allows you to create that pod that gives student affairs and other opportunities on campus this ability to allow you to do a little bit more in the pod. So that's why at face value, it may seem like, well, these aren't the same, but the setup in the classroom is so that we can ensure that there's no spread, and therefore some of these other pieces can occur.
I just said that one of the things that's helping us as well as our testing program. So, our prevalence testing, our on and off campus students are being selected randomly for testing. And so we're able to catch people who may be asymptomatic and have the virus in a different way. And that prevalence testing will continue for on and off campus students in the spring.
And I know I prefaced this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add that on the testing, that has been expanded to the greater Washington, D.C. area. So it's not being implemented in the same way as Blacksburg. And I believe it's also happening at the Roanoke campus. So it took us some time, but I think we're finally there where we can have testing available for our faculty, staff, and students.
Thank you. And, you know, I prefaced that question about masks and all of that in relation to spring and when we come back, when students come back, what that will look like. But I do want you, and you've touched on the vigilance that we all need to have and wearing the mask and washing the hands still. But I wonder if you can talk about that in relation to now, especially as we have Halloween right around the corner and Thanksgiving break, and any recommendations that you might have for our students.
Yeah, I can give this a shot. I think the key is staying vigilant. I know we're all exhausted and tired. Pandemic fatigue is a real thing. And I just think about before the pandemic, once a week, I went to my personal trainer, and after about 45 minutes, I was done. But, pushing through that last 15 minutes was really beneficial. I think we're just going to have to stay strong in this last season towards whenever the pandemic ends. We don't know when that is, but we've just got to stay committed. And that means, take good care of yourself, make good decisions, and stay committed, because all the things that we're sharing are because people have done the right kinds of things. They've made good decisions. I'm blown away by the commitment of 99% of our students at Virginia Tech. We just got to stay in it, get to the end of that training session, whenever that session ends, and it's going to serve us well. And then we're going to have a big celebration to celebrate that we did this together.
Don, the only thing I'd add, and I'm sure Karen might reflect on this as well, is, Rick spoke to it earlier. Fall, it's a long stretch to Thanksgiving. And we always feel that sense of fatigue really at this time of year. And so it really is important to think about those things that are going to help you as individuals or in your pods to really sustain this effort. And that's going to be very different for different individuals. I am especially thankful that the sun is out and we're having beautiful weather right now, because one of the gifts of our campus is our outdoor space and the place in which we live. So, sometimes if you feel like you're watching the longest lecture on video ever, hit pause and take the walk. Do those things that are going to help you continue to do well and to be healthy and to be academically successful till we get to the end of term. And I know that you're looking forward to being able to, many of you, go home and see your families, but we also know some of our students will be staying here. And please take advantage of all the things that Virginia Tech has to offer as we all try to push through this fatigue. I know that it's different for different people, but, do that thing which works best for you.
And our graduate students, Dean DePaul, are here year round, many of them with their families. I don't know if you can speak to maybe some opportunities that might be available for them. I know you mentioned the cafe as an example.
Yeah, there are some things that the grad school is organizing, and we will be doing that through the end of the semester and then into the spring semester, and then trying to have some physically distanced in-person activities. I know that some of the grad students have found their own pods or ways of their own community, but there is a group that I want to bring up and it applies to US citizens, but our international students at the undergraduate and graduate level. Some will be here year round and they can't go home. And we need, as a university, I think we need to acknowledge that, because some may want to go home, but depending upon what's happening places in the world, they may not get back. You know, immigration purposes or just with breakout. So I guess for all of us, faculty, staff, and the students, grad student, undergraduate students, again, I just hope everybody can reach out and have that understanding, because everybody's life is unique. And I think our international students have more of those challenges, but there will be some things that can be done. And Frank, I know that some of these individuals will be staying during the break, and they can stay during the end of the semester. So, thank you.
Some students are asking questions, just sort of logistics as they plan. Those that are able to travel a bit to go to their families over Thanksgiving, and given the dates and the timing of announcing the dates of course delivery, it presents a little bit of a challenge in terms of booking flights. And I'm wondering how students can handle that might be challenged with knowing when to book a round trip ticket, for example, if the dates are sort of up in the air at this point.
Don, is that question largely about the courses that they're going to be taking, or about the housing?
I think it is. It doesn't really say. I think I take it to mean the course delivery. Sure. And not having the dates to know when they can come back for that. Although there was actually, Rick, there is a question as well about move-in and when to come back for move-in, if they have to arrange flights based on that and they don't know the move-in dates yet.
Yeah, so we talk about courses real quick, and then Frank can answer the other question about move-in. But courses, the semester is going to span the same dates as before. So we're starting up on January 19th. Now that key piece there is that first week, that Tuesday through Friday, because Monday is a non-class day. That Tuesday through Friday, that first week is all virtual. And so as you're thinking about your plans coming back, if you're not living on campus, that's an extra week of flexibility that you have as you decide when to return. If you need, if you're coming into Blacksburg, or if you're going to Falls Church or some of our other campuses. And so that's something that you can pay attention to there. And then also at the end of the semester, know that the semester is going to end at the same point. And so we're going to push all the way to that second week of May. And the end of the semester and those exam dates are going to remain the same. And so that the semester is going to expand the same amount of time that it was before. But if you live on campus, it does make sense. How do I know when I'm coming back? And so Frank alluded to it before with that December date. But Frank, you want to give some details?
Yeah, if at all possible, wait till that December 7th date so you can go in and you can sign up for your return date. Now, some of you may be in a really unique situation because of your needing air travel. And if that's the case, I think that I wouldn't let December 7th, if you need to book before December 7th, be the barrier. So we're going to accommodate you if you have a plane ticket that says I have to be back on a particular day. But if you aren't flying, then wait till December 7th. And if you are flying and you can wait till after December 7th, all the better.
And Frank, earlier you were sort of giving a shout out to our community for its behavior and vigilance and following the guidelines to really allow things to open up as they are. And I can't help but think about our freshmen who are here and experiencing a very different first year experience from what freshmen before them have, and our seniors who are spending their first part of their last semester very differently than I'm sure they expected, which leads me to a lot of questions we got about commencement. Is there anything you could share about that? A lot of folks asking, is it going to be in person? What will that look like? Will we still be able to have it in person?
Yeah, I think one, we know that sometimes when we make decisions too early, we're not equipped with the right data and information. And so, we're always hesitant to make decisions too far out because we might be able to do something different. And so that's why we're hesitating yet to make a clear, definitive answer on commencement. But what I will emphasize is, the whole thing here is everything that we do together, and it's more committed that we are as a community, and not only the Virginia Tech community, but our whole country. The more that we are committed to public health and the greater good, the more likely it is we're going to be moving inch by inch closer to the life that we knew pre-pandemic. So what I do know right now is what we can do is what is in our control, which is make good decisions, care about the greater good, care about other people and their health and well-being. And what I hope is that for this community, it's going to lead to something other than a virtual commencement. Now, we're not ready to make that decision yet, but we know what it's going to take to get there. And that's a little perseverance and hard work and grit and commitment, even though it's hard. And I just will say, I have a first-year student in college and I have a senior at Virginia Tech. I know exactly what this looks like from their perspective. I spent a lot of time with students, a lot. And I'll just say this, I think our students are extraordinary. They are making something out of a really hard situation. We should be really proud of them.
Dawn, I'd like to add a couple of comments about commencement, and just to acknowledge that we don't have just one commencement. We have the university commencement, we have graduate commencement, we have the colleges, the Corps of Cadets, Honors College, and we have commencements in the national capital, Greater Washington, D.C. area. And so those decisions will be made about that. I did hear the president say that at this point, we're leaving options open. So just echoing what Frank has said, no decision has been made, but just to acknowledge that commencement is wide ranging. And I forgot, there's also department commencements, as well.
Absolutely. I think you've pretty much answered this next question, but I did want to give you an opportunity to answer all of you. I know that Frank, you just talked about making decisions as we go and having as much information as we can. So I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway. Are any of these plans set in stone in terms of the decisions that have been made for spring? And anyone can take that. Go ahead.
I think a basic assumption here is that things stay on the track that they are on right now. I think one of the things that we've learned through this entire thing is that we have to be informed by data, by science, by public health guidelines. Best we know right now, these are the things that we can do. In stone, I think that would be unwise to put anything in stone, but I think we've learned a lot. We know how to, we're learning a lot from science. We're learning a lot from our public health officials. We're seeing a lot of commitment. And so we're able to say the things that we're saying today with a degree of confidence that we would say it in a town hall.
Dr. Holloway, did you want to say something?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I know all of us wish the world were a little more predictable, but it's just not been. We've all experienced that. I think as I talked to someone earlier today, he said, I just keep telling everybody flexibility and adaptability and just doing the best we can. And I think that's where we are. We're going to do the best we can with the circumstances as we see them. But Frank's right. We have been learning a great deal. And so as we learn through the spring semester, we want to be open to possibilities. But at the same time, a semester begins and ends. We know that. And, we'll just have to do our best to navigate through the spring. I hope things get better. I can tell you students do know that, and I'm sure you're hearing it from your faculty. Our faculty and staff are in this with you. Our community members are in this as well. And so, as Karen says, part of being a community is working together as we go down this path and continue to adapt and change as we can to make it the best for everyone.
Don, one thing I would add to that, though, is as these decisions are made, they are made, Frank said it well, not necessarily that they're in stone, but they're also made with as much flexibility as possible built in. And I'll give you the semester example. When we set the fall semester, one of the ideas that was tossed around early on is, well, do we wait a week? Do we delay the semester 1 week and give folks just a little bit more time, because we know we're making decisions quickly over the summer? And ultimately that was rejected, and we stayed on the same calendar, because doing so gave us a little bit more flexibility in case something occurred, in case that the trends that we were seeing with infections and hospitalization rates changed, and we needed to make a sudden shift and pivot the fall semester. We had a few extra days built into the calendar to make that shift. So understand also that as these decisions are made, that as much flexibility is built in as possible, so that course can be adjusted if it has to. Not that there's an expectation that it will, but that just so that we're prepared in case.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We have just under 5 minutes remaining, and I'd just like to give each of you an opportunity to share some final thoughts before we close out. Dean DePaul, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I think it's important that we continue to communicate. I mean, we've tried to share some things today. I know that there are always going to be more questions, and maybe some of us have answered it multiple times, but I don't care. If we need to, and you have promise out of the graduate school, and I know for the university, that we will do everything that we can to communicate changes or what we're doing with you. But please ask questions too. I know, I don't think Dawn said that there were several hundred questions that came in, but I think it's really important, because it is the uncertainty and the unknowing that can add to the stress and the tension, and we don't need any more of that. So let's keep communicating, finding out the facts, sharing them. And I'm fairly certain, I know that the four of us here are committed to the best communication that we can. And if we're not doing our jobs, then ask us. Make us do our jobs and communicate.
Thank you. Dr. Holloway?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Karen said. I so appreciate that we truly had hundreds of questions come in, because that's the only way we can really know what's on the minds of our faculty, our staff, our students, our community. And as much as we try to reach out, this is really helpful to us to hear what people's concerns are, so that we can share them. We can begin working on those, thinking about how to address them. And as Frank said, it's not really what we all anticipated for this year, but I am really proud of the community, of our students, and our faculty are doing amazing things that we could not have imagined last March. And so I really appreciate all the effort that's going in from our students and faculty working together to make sure that learning and the real mission of this university, the sharing of knowledge, the coming together in community to learn, is still ongoing and vibrant. So keep telling us how we can improve that through the rest of the semester and the spring.
Thank you. Frank?
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. Through this pandemic, I knew that I was going to need a couple mantras to hang on to in the ebbs and flows of emotion that come and go during hard times like this. And two of them that are at the top of my mind and that I think about every day is one, doing hard things makes you stronger. And that is really the truth. And this is a really hard thing. And it is making us stronger, even when we can't see that it's making us stronger. And that is the truth at Virginia Tech. And the second mantra is this, can we receive chaos, return calm, and be a voice of hope for our community? All of us have a chance to do that. Every single one of us. Let's be voices of hope, encourage people. Let's vote for the common good. Let's keep going. Let's get through this together.
Thank you. Rick, would you like to close this out?
Yeah, just quickly, I believe those mantras that Frank threw out wholeheartedly. I tend to be a pretty positive and jovial person. At the same time, I just want to say to anybody listening that I also recognize and acknowledge the fact that a lot of this stuff it stinks. This is tough. This is tough stuff that we're all dealing with. And I know that it hits people disproportionately. I have a freshman in high school and I have a senior in high school. And I hate that my daughter's missing her senior homecoming dance. My son, he's got 3 more chances. He'll be okay. This is impacting them differently based off of where they are. And when I get kind of bummed out for her, I try to tell myself, you know what? It's okay to admit that it stinks. It's okay to admit that this is kind of stinky. But I also have to remind myself that I'm not the only one, and there's lots of other people dealing with this. And I like Frank's mantras a lot because it brings me back to that. So I would close by saying to anybody who's listening, recognize that every decision that has been made, that it is being made with the awareness and the acknowledgement that this impacts people disproportionately, and that we realize that some of this stuff, it stinks. All things being equal, a lot of these decisions wouldn't be made. But given the realities of what we've got to face with COVID, I truly believe that we are making the best decisions as possible for the Virginia Tech community. And so with the spirit of communication, and Karen said, call us on it if we're not being communicative, and Frank's mantras, I think those are some excellent points to carry away from today.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, everyone. Dean DePaul, Dr. Holloway, Dr. Shushak, and Rick again. Thank you all for being here and for answering our questions, and for everyone who submitted questions as well. And be sure to keep up with the daily email on the Virginia Tech website for information on upcoming town halls, or to make sure that you receive the communication and the sharing of information that's happening. So thank you.